Okay, so get ready because today we're time
Time
traveling.
traveling.
You got it. But no DeLorean, no paradoxes,
Okay.
just pure historical immersion. You know you sent in those excerpts from travelingthroughtime.txt.
Right.
Well, we're going to use those to take you to some incredible places that feel like stepping into different eras.
Ooh, I'm intrigued.
I knew you would be.
So where are we headed?
Well, we're going to bounce around a bit from the medieval maze of Fez, Morocco,
Oh, wow.
to the Zen gardens of Kyoto.
Kyoto. Love it.
And then there's Rothenburg, Germany. Imagine a town where it's basically Christmas all year round.
My kind of place.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But hold on, we're also hitting Havana, Cuba with those classic cars,
Oh, yeah. Havana?
and Matera, Italy, where people actually live in ancient cave dwellings.
Cave dwellings, you're kidding?
Nope, not kidding. Okay, and that's not even half of it. We've got Petra carved into those red cliffs in Jordan,
I've always wanted to see Petra.
and the rock-hewn churches of Lalibela in Ethiopia.
Lalibela. No, that's a place you don't hear about every day.
I know, right? And then back to the U.S. for colonial Williamsburg.
Wow, that's quite a trip.
I know, right? I'm getting history whiplash just thinking about it.
Well, that's where I come in. I'm here to help you not only understand what makes each place special, but also why these locations still matter today.
Perfect. So let's start with Fez. What I found fascinating in the source was the description of the Medina, this huge urban area where cars are banned. It's like the entire city is a pedestrian zone.
It is. It's one of the largest car-free urban zones in the world, actually. And when you think about it, that's how cities existed for centuries before the automobile came along.
Wow, that's crazy to think about.
Yeah. Fez gives you a glimpse into that pre-car world, with its narrow alleys, bustling markets, and donkeys carrying goods.
I can practically smell the spices already. The source also mentioned the Tuara tanneries where they still produce leather using traditional methods. Do you have any insight into that?
Oh yeah, the tanneries. Leather tanning in Fez has been practiced for centuries, going back to the medieval period. The tanneries are a sight to behold huge stone vats filled with natural dyes, the strong smell of leather in the air.
I bet.
It's a reminder of the craftsmanship and trade that were central to life in Fez back then.
Okay, moving from the bustle of Fez to the tranquility of Kyoto.
Ah, Kyoto.
This source highlighted the Gion district, known for its geishas. What exactly is a geisha and what makes their tradition so special?
Oh, the geisha. The image of a geisha is often misunderstood. They are not simply entertainers, but highly skilled artists trained in traditional Japanese arts,
Like what?
like music, dance, and tea ceremony. They play an important role in preserving Japanese cultural heritage, entertaining guests in traditional tea houses and restaurants.
The source also mentions staying in a traditional inn called a ryokan.
Ah, yes, ryokans.
That sounds amazing.
They are. Ryokans are an integral part of experiencing traditional Japanese hospitality. They feature tatami mat floors, sliding doors, and often have communal baths and gardens.
It's so peaceful.
Guests typically wear yukata, light cotton robes, and sleep on futons laid out on the floor.
I can definitely get used to that.
I think we all could.
Next, we're off to Rothenburg, Germany.
Oh, wonderful Rothenburg.
I love how the source described it as a fairy tale town. What makes it so unique?
Rothenburg ob der Tauber is a remarkably well-preserved medieval town.
I've seen pictures. It's beautiful.
It is. It's known for its charming half-timbered houses, cobblestone streets, and fortified walls.
Sounds like something straight out of a storybook.
It really does. It
Yeah.
truly feels like stepping back in time.
And it's famous for its Christmas market, right?
Yes. The Cathe Wolfart Christmas Village is open year-round, offering a festive atmosphere no matter the season.
That's amazing.
But Rothenburg also has a darker side,
Oh.
represented by the Medieval Crime and Justice Museum.
Okay, that's a little less cheery.
It is. It displays instruments of torture and punishment from the Middle Ages, a reminder that life in those times wasn't always romantic.
Yeah, good point. So from medieval Germany, we're jumping to 1950s Cuba.
Ah.
What jumped out at me was the description of classic American cars cruising the streets.
Oh yeah, Havana is like a time capsule of the 1950s. Because of the Cuban Revolution and the subsequent U.S. embargo, the city's development was essentially frozen in time.
So that's why they have those classic cars.
Exactly. So you have these beautifully preserved American cars from that era, still running, and a huge part of the city's identity.
It's like a living museum of vintage cars.
Exactly. But remember, this is also a city shaped by a complex political history, and that's important to keep in mind while appreciating its unique charm.
Right, of course.
So now we're heading to Italy, to a place called Matera. I have to admit, the idea of people living in cave dwellings blew my mind.
It blew mine too.
The Sassi di Matera are ancient cave dwellings carved into the soft limestone cliffs.
Wow.
They represent one of the oldest continuously inhabited settlements in the world,
Really? How old are we talking?
dating back thousands of years.
Thousands of years. What are they like inside?
Originally, these caves were quite basic,
I can imagine.
but over time they've been adapted and modernized while still retaining their historical character.
That's pretty amazing.
Today, you can even find hotels and restaurants located within these ancient dwellings, offering a truly unique experience.
Okay, next up is Petra in Jordan.
Petra.
The source described it as a lost city carved into cliffs.
It really is a
Fa-
lost city.
What was it like?
Petra was once a thriving trading center on the Silk Road, a road that connected the East and West.
Oh, wow, I didn't realize.
It was the capital of the Nabatean kingdom, known for their impressive rock-cut architecture.
The treasury at Petra is especially famous. The source mentioned a Petra by night experience where it's lit by candles.
Oh yes, the treasury by night.
That sounds incredible.
It is. It's a magical experience. Imagine hundreds of candles illuminating the treasury's facade against the backdrop of the night sky.
Breathtaking.
It transports you back to a time when Petra was a bustling hub of activity.
Okay, now we're traveling to Lalibela in Ethiopia. The source mentioned rock-hewn churches. Can you explain what that means?
Sure. Lalibela is home to 11 monolithic churches,
Monolithic.
which means each church is carved out of a single block of rock.
You're kidding.
Nope. They were commissioned by King Lalibela in the 12th century and are a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Carved from a single block of rock. That's incredible. What makes these churches so special?
Well, they are a remarkable feat of engineering and artistry. They are also a significant pilgrimage site for followers of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church.
So they're still active churches.
Oh yes, very much so.
And lastly, we're going back to the U.S. to colonial Williamsburg.
A classic.
What can you tell us about that?
Colonial Williamsburg is a living history museum that recreates life in the 18th century. You can walk down Duke of Gloucester Street, the main thoroughfare, and see costumed interpreters demonstrating colonial crafts,
What kind of crafts?
from blacksmithing to printing.
Sounds pretty cool.
It is. You can visit historic buildings, watch reenactments of colonial life, and even dine on 18th century cuisine. It's a fascinating way to experience a pivotal period in American history.
Okay, so we've taken a whirlwind tour of these time-traveling destinations.
And we've only just scratched the surface.
Right. There's so much more to explore, but I think it's time to take a step back and ask, what does it all mean? Why is it important to connect with the past in such tangible ways?
That's a great question. And I think it gets to the heart of what makes these destinations so fascinating. These destinations aren't just about seeing old buildings or artifacts.
Right. It's not about checking things off a list.
Exactly. It's about experiencing how people lived and thought in completely different contexts.
Yeah, like when you walk those narrow streets in Fez.
Right.
Imagine living in a world without cars.
You really have to shift your perspective.
It changes your whole view on city life, doesn't it?
It really does.
And the source mentioned that the traditional tanneries are still operating today.
Oh, yeah.
Using those ancient methods.
It's incredible.
It's hard to grasp the skill and patience involved in that kind of work.
It really challenges our modern notion of efficiency and instant gratification.
For sure.
In Fez, craftsmanship is a way of life passed down through generations.
Okay, now I'm picturing myself in Kyoto, trying to navigate a traditional tea ceremony.
The tea ceremony.
I'd probably be fumbling all over the place.
Don't worry.
I'm not exactly known for my grace.
There's beauty in the ritual itself,
Yeah,
even if you don't get it perfect right away.
I appreciate that.
The tea ceremony is all about mindfulness, precision, and appreciating the simple act of preparing and sharing tea.
It makes our on-the-go coffee culture seem pretty rushed in comparison.
It does, doesn't it?
So, switching gears again.
Sure.
What about Rothenburg? The source mentioned a museum dedicated to medieval crime and punishment.
Oh, yes.
I'm both intrigued and a little terrified.
It's definitely a unique museum.
I bet.
It's a fascinating glimpse into a darker side of history. Seeing those instruments of torture can be unsettling, but it also reminds us how far we've come in terms of human rights and justice.
It's definitely a good reminder to be grateful for the present.
I agree.
Speaking of contrasts,
Okay.
from medieval Germany, we're jumping to 1950s Cuba.
Quite a jump.
I have a feeling I'd spend all my time in Havana admiring those vintage cars.
Well, those classic American cars are iconic, but they represent something deeper.
Oh.
They're a symbol of how a historical event, the Cuban Revolution combined with the U.S. embargo, essentially froze the country in time.
So it's like a time capsule.
Exactly.
But of course, Cuba isn't just stuck in the past.
Of course not.
It has a vibrant culture and people who have adapted to these unique circumstances.
Precisely. And that's an important point to remember when we visit these places. They are not theme parks or movie sets, but living communities with their own stories and complexities.
That's a really good point.
Something to keep in mind.
Now let's talk about Matera.
Madeira,
Living in a cave dwelling sounds so primal.
it does, doesn't it?
What drew people to these caves in the first place?
Well, the caves offered shelter and protection from the elements.
I guess that makes sense.
The soft limestone was relatively easy to carve, so people created these elaborate cave systems that served as homes, churches, and even workshops.
It's amazing what people can do.
It is.
And the source mentioned that these caves have been modernized
Right.
while still preserving their historical character.
It's a delicate balance.
It is. It's a testament to the ingenuity and adaptability of the people of Matera.
Absolutely.
They've managed to create comfortable, modern living spaces within these ancient structures.
I think that's fascinating.
Me too. Okay, I have to ask, what does it feel like to actually be inside one of these cave dwellings?
That's a good question. Imagine cool, dim spaces with rough-hewn walls and then splashes of modern design and amenities.
So like a mix of old and new.
Yeah, it's a unique blend of ancient and modern with a sense of history seeping from the very stone.
I love that.
It's quite an experience.
Next on our list is Petra,
Ah,
that incredible city carved into the cliffs. What I find amazing is that this wasn't just a settlement, but a major trading center connecting east and west.
it was a major hub.
It was.
The Nabateans, who built Petra, controlled a vast trading network along the Silk Road.
Wow.
They were incredibly skilled engineers and architects, able to harness water in the desert and create these monumental structures that still stand today.
It's hard to fathom the scale of their ambition and the level of craftsmanship involved.
It really is. Imagine caravans laden with silk, spices, and precious goods passing through those narrow gorges.
Wow.
The city bustling with merchants and travelers from all over the world.
Now we're off to Ethiopia.
Okay.
What I found most striking about Lalibela was that these churches weren't built, but carved from the rock itself.
They are remarkable.
They are. The churches of Lalibela are a testament to the devotion and architectural vision of King Lalibela.
He had a vision.
He did. He wanted to create a new Jerusalem for those who couldn't make the pilgrimage to the Holy Land.
A noble goal.
So each church is like a symbolic representation of a sacred site in Jerusalem.
Exactly. And the fact that they were carved from single blocks of rock using hand tools makes them even more extraordinary.
It's mind-boggling to imagine the effort and skill required for that kind of undertaking.
It's a testament to human ingenuity.
And finally, we're back to colonial Williamsburg in the U.S.
Back to the U.S.
What makes it different from simply reading about colonial history in a textbook?
Well, colonial Williamsburg is about experiencing history with all your senses.
Oh, I like that.
You can smell the wood smoke from the blacksmith's forge, hear the clatter of the printing press, see the vibrant colors of colonial clothing. It's like stepping into a time machine.
You mentioned costumed interpreters earlier.
Yeah.
What role do they play in bringing this history to life?
Well, the interpreters are more than just actors in costumes. They are experts in colonial history and culture, and they embody the daily lives of people from that era,
Like who?
from farmers and shopkeepers to politicians and craftspeople.
So you can actually interact with them.
Yes, ask them questions and get a sense of what life was really like back then.
Absolutely. It's a much more engaging and memorable way to learn about history than simply reading about it in a book.
Okay, so we've talked about what makes each of these destinations special,
We have.
but there's a bigger question I want to address.
Oh, what's that?
Is it even possible to truly experience the past through travel? Or are we just getting a romanticized, filtered version?
That's the million-dollar question.
I know, right?
It's something we need to think critically about.
Yeah, it's easy to get swept up in the romance of these places,
It is.
but are we really experiencing the past?
Hmm.
Or just a carefully curated version of it?
Yeah, that's a valid concern. These destinations, especially those geared towards tourism, often present a sanitized, idealized view of history.
Like in Rothenburg,
Right.
where the focus is on the charming medieval architecture and the year-round Christmas market.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily see the struggles of everyday life back then. We don't. We might miss the harder realities, poverty, disease, social inequality. The Medieval Crime and Justice Museum in Rothenburg hints at that darker side.
Right.
But it's easy to overlook amidst the fairy tale atmosphere.
And even a place like Matera, with its fascinating cave dwellings.
Materia.
It's one thing to visit a modernized cave dwelling,
Mm-hmm.
but quite another to imagine living there hundreds of years ago
Right.
without electricity or running water.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that while these destinations offer a glimpse into the past, they don't necessarily capture the full experience.
So how do we navigate this? Is it even possible to get a genuine sense of the past through travel?
I think it's about being mindful and asking critical questions.
Yeah.
Going beyond the surface level attractions.
Okay.
And seek out the stories of the people who lived and worked in these places.
So, for example, in Fez, instead
Yeah.
of just focusing on the exoticism of the tanneries, we could learn about the lives of the tanners themselves,
Yes.
their traditions, the challenges they face.
Exactly. Read historical accounts, talk to locals, visit museums that delve deeper into the social and cultural context.
And in Kyoto, maybe seek out a traditional tea ceremony led by someone who can explain the history and symbolism behind the rituals,
Right.
rather than just going through the motions as a tourist spectacle.
It's about engaging with the past on a more meaningful level
Yeah.
and acknowledging that our present-day perspective will always influence our understanding of history.
So it's not about erasing our modern lens,
No,
but rather being aware of it and using it to critically examine the past.
exactly. Time travel through these destinations can be a powerful tool for learning, but it's up to us to approach it thoughtfully and responsibly.
Okay, so as we wrap up our exploration of these time-traveling destinations,
Uh,
what's one big takeaway you hope our listener will ponder?
Well, I think the most important thing is to remember that history is not just a collection of dates and events, but a tapestry of human experiences,
Right.
both grand and ordinary.
I love that analogy.
And these destinations offer us a chance to connect with that tapestry,
Yeah.
to feel its texture, and to appreciate its complexities.
So for our listener out there, feeling inspired to explore the past,
Yes.
what's one action they can take to turn this deep dive into something more tangible?
I would say choose one destination that sparked your curiosity and delve deeper.
Okay.
Read about its history, explore online resources, watch documentaries,
Right?
and maybe even start planning a hypothetical trip.
I'm already picturing myself wandering through those ancient streets, soaking it all in.
Even armchair travel can be a form of time travel. It can spark your imagination and expand your horizons.
So until our next deep dive,
Yes.
keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep that time-traveling spirit alive.
And remember, the past is always there, waiting to be discovered